Now, let me elaborate on something else. You notice the difference between the BLM protests with Antifa and the difference between the Mexicans protesting? Notice how during the BLM Antifa, they were vandalizing buildings as far as just random stores and looting them. The Mexicans are not protesting to loot. The Mexicans are protesting to keep their right to keep working in America, not to loot, to work. They're protesting to live the American dream and have the privilege to work. They're not looting. Now that they go to ICE and all this, or those buildings, and you say they're not vandalizing, blah, 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 this and all that. They're not breaking into buildings and stealing their goods. You notice how you don't see those? You don't see videos popping up everywhere of all these stores, these Nike stores, these places just being looted by white and black people. I don't know if some of the people, the black people that joined the Mexicans because they thought that they were going to go looting and that they were just going to continue their looting. Now, where there's some bad apples among the Mexicans that probably did some of the looting during the BLM, they probably got caught up in the moment. So the Mexicans are protesting the right to survive, to work. And what's so crazy is that they're defending the same farmers. Why do you think these farmers are allowed to go onto their land and get the Mexicans out? Because they voted for that. And they give permission for ICE to go on their property. Because it's private property. You can't just go on private property because you want to. So they're given the right to go on private property, on private land, by the people that voted against them. And yet these Mexicans are defending them because they still want the right to work on these farms for these farmers that turned their back on them. But you don't see them looting. You see them protesting. Now that they are getting really nasty with ICE, well, they're fed up. They came here peacefully and you show them your guns. What do you expect them to do? You say that you are just coming to arrest. You're arresting the class, the working class of America. And that working class just happens to be illegal in your eyes. This is indigenous land. You can put all the fences you want. You see how that's been working out for you? So, you don't want to acknowledge that, right? You don't want to acknowledge that they're not looting. They're just protesting. That they're letting ICE have it. Well, they are pinning them down. Worse. They just killed one black man. Now they just killed a Mexican by throwing him off a building. Now, you don't think the Mexicans should uprise just like how the black people did during BLM? Yeah, they should. Do you see them looting like BLM and Antifa? No, you don't. No, you don't. You see them protesting for the right to work. And where are they coming to get them? They're not coming to get them in the stores looted stores. They're coming to get them from their jobs, from their work. Not just being bums out in the street. What now? Like I said, man, the truth, it doesn't hurt. It just makes people shift in their seat. Now, you may see that these protests that they did in Mexico, they didn't go in there and start looting. They went in there and started breaking windows and everything because this is Mexico. That's what they're saying. All this gentrification, trying to colonize America, get the fuck out. I mean, trying to colonize Mexico, get the fuck out with that. And you don't feel they don't have the right. But yet it's okay because ICE is deporting people all the way to South Africa. Two Mexicans that have been deported all the way to Sudan, Africa. Mexicans. Along with one African and the other people that were from some other countries. I think from like India or Pakistan or something like that. But these people, mind you, they were from Mexico, deported to Africa. And they're going to be more African than you that claim to be African. Because they touched African soil. And you have never touched it in your life. You have never taken your sandals off in Africa and just let the dirt run between your toes. And these people, these Mexicans, these two Mexicans that were deported to Africa are going to have that privilege. You know? To be able to take off their shoes and let African soil run between their toes. They might have an African wife someday and have more roots than you there. Because, like I said, many of you claim to be from there. And here's another thing about Juneteenth. Juneteenth was started in Mexico. How about that? But you want to steal everything. Even like Batman was an old Aztec bat god that became Batman in Marvel Comics. There is nothing here in this country that you've created. Everything that you have here, the tools were already here. The native people were already doing it. You know, and then you start saying the first person that did an open heart surgery was a black man. Really? So you say. So you don't think the Aztecs and the Mayans, they didn't do all that stuff? You know? I'm pretty sure every nationality has done that in their own countries before here, and even among themselves here while they were here, when they were slaves and all this stuff. But anyhow, now is that too much, too hard of a pill to swallow? To say that these Mexicans, that they're getting them from their jobs, not the occasional one out here in the streets, but the majority of them, they're being taken from their jobs. Not from a building they're looting. You know? Not while you see them with handfuls of other people's, businesses stuff that they're just running away with. You don't see them going into all these jewelry stores and then coming out wearing all this jewelry, and then posting themselves on TikTok and all this with all this jewelry, making them seem like they're living the high life. They're protesting to work, not to loot. There's one thing that the Indian people used to do to the young people when they were children. And they used to say, why do you wrap them all the way in their arms to the side? You see a lot of natives, they walk with their arms to the side. It's so they wouldn't get things. They said this so you wouldn't steal something, get something that doesn't belong to you. That's why they would wrap them with their arms to their sides. And they only put their hands out when it was given or offered it to them, or they went in hunting and something like that. But they're not looting. They're protesting for the right to work. Stay tuned for more information.